And we are on. Hello, everyone. Tom Tabor here, Tabor Football Podcast. Got Kagan Skidmore back with me again. So last week we went over the AFC South. A little more excitement this week going over the AFC West. So in terms of Super Bowls, every single team in this division has at least played in one Super Bowl. But yeah, there's plenty of Super Bowls, plenty of experience, plenty of history with this division itself. So we got the Chiefs, we got the Chargers, we got the Broncos, and we got the Raiders. So Denver, you have 8 Super Bowl appearances. KC and the Raiders, you have 5 each with those. And then the Chargers, of course, have their one Super Bowl appearance back in '94, where they lost to Steve Young and the Niners. But yeah, a lot of history here. And then, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Skid, let me know your thoughts on this. Honestly, I think I don't want to say it, but I think they've turned into the new New England Patriots. They've been in every single AFC championship.
13-4 is probably not enough.
Yeah, so yeah, you got your defending champions, Kansas City Chiefs, in this division. So yeah, we can go team by team, but shall we start with the champs?
Let's do it. Let's do the easy one first.
Yep. So yeah, like I said, I think the Chiefs, very much turning into what we grew to know as the New England Patriots. So the Chiefs have played in every single AFC Championship game since 2018. Very storied franchise. Obviously, they played in the very first Super Bowl back in the 60s. Played in the last NFL Super Bowl. That the result of that game obviously helped with the merger. But yeah, what do you think in this year? What are we going to expect to see from KC?
Well, they reloaded because they got more receivers this year, which is terrifying.
Yep, that's for sure.
Travis Kelce's best tight end in the league, possibly. I think right now, if he was to retire tomorrow, he'd be a top 5 tight end of all time.
I would have to agree. Absolutely.
I don't know if he's not number 1. But I think top 5 is fair.
Mm-hmm.
He's still going. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You can't even double it. It's insane.
No. He's a tight end and run routes. He runs routes like a receiver.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then obviously you have Patrick Mahomes, who is without a doubt, I think, the best quarterback currently in the NFL. Yeah. He's the only starting quarterback right now that has 2 Super Bowl titles and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Now that Tom Brady retired.
He does things. I'll tell you who he reminds me of, and you're gonna laugh at me, but he reminds me of this guy right here.
A-Raj.
Well, Aaron Rodgers, man. He just does these crossbody throws, these no-look throws, these deep balls, back shoulder, across his body. He just does shit that's unhuman in the game of football, and it changes everything.
Exactly. No, definitely very similar to Aaron Rodgers' ability to move around the pocket, evade pressure. It's always a rare sight. I'm always intrigued whenever I see, Patrick Mahomes actually get sacked. I'm like, whoa. Did that really just happen? No, wait. Someone actually had the capability of bringing him down.
So whenever I'm sitting here looking at, Sky Moore, obviously is the new guy.
Yep.
Really good at Western Michigan. One of the fastest guys in the draft. So.
And then one of the more I think underrated players, especially coming out of last year's draft. He had a big role in the Super Bowl, was Isaiah Pacheco.
Isaiah Pacheco, man. Yeah. Isaiah Pacheco. It's they once again, when you go on the list, Sky Moore, Isaiah Pacheco, Kadarius Toney, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Those guys are all freaking 4, 5 and under guys. It's just absurd.
Speed.
And everyone was so sad when they got rid of Tyreek Hill, but it's they got 4 guys that are just as fast. I honestly, MVS used to be on the Packers. I think in a head-to-head and 100-yard dash, I almost think that MVS is faster than Tyreek Hill. Well, now, is he a better receiver? Absolutely not. He's not a better receiver. But I promise you, because he used to take that whenever we had with the Packers, he would easily dust people in the secondary. And then we
Oh,
just
yeah.
drop the touchdown. But then now, he's learned how to catch the football with Kansas City, of course. And they're good. I mean, Joe Thuney,
Creed Humphrey, one of the
Creed
best
Humphrey, one of the best centers in the
NFL.
league. Yeah.
Yeah, they're stacked.
Did they end up signing Orlando Pace or no? Orlando Pace. Orlando Brown. I think they had him last year and they didn't re-sign him.
They did have him last year. I don't think he re-signed.
Yeah.
Let me take a look. He signed. I thought he signed a fat contract somewhere else. Orlando.
They got Donovan Smith starting, which he's no lackey. He's 6'6", 338.
Oh, you know who got Zeus, as they like to call him, the Bengals.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But then everyone talked that the weakness on this defense or weakness of the team was the defense. But then you have Chris Jones, which is going to go. He's going to go down as one of the best interior guys to play the game of football.
I think he's now. I think today, I think he's better than Aaron Donald, man.
As of last year, I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. I think the difference between Aaron Donald and him is Aaron Donald's a little bit more versatile with his speed. But, I mean, Chris Jones is a monster.
Yes.
Like, he's 6'6", 310 and moves like a running back.
Yep. And then the one thing with Chris Jones is, I think everyone knows it's coming. The bull rush, you just you can't stop it.
No.
You can't stop it.
But they really started shining last year was their secondary with Justin Reed, Trent Duffy, Ladarius Sneed, Brian Cook. Then obviously they got Carl Aftis on the edge.
Yeah, he had I thought a really good rookie season.
Yeah. I mean he can play for sure. Where did he play at?
And then
Purdue. That's right.
And then one of them, obviously more experienced D coordinators, and Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, the guy's been around. He's the guy that beat Tom Brady, and obviously in Super Bowl 42 and 07, ending New England's perfect season that year.
Of course, here's the other thing, man. Is this team is really good. But they do not get the credit. Andy Reid does not get the credit he deserves as a premier coach. Like, he is really good.
Just look at how many conference titles he's been to alone with Philly and Kansas City.
I think he should be getting just as much noise as Bill Belichick. Because if you look at the team differences, I think they, as a team, some of the Patriots teams were ridiculous.
Yes.
In comparison to this. I mean, the best quarterback and the best receiver that ever played the game of football were on the same team at one point.
So you're saying Randy Moss is the best receiver?
There's no doubt. There's not a better receiver to take the top off of a defense ever in the game of football.
Oh, not even Jerry Rice.
Even over Megatron, Jerry Rice was just.
What about T.O.? So, because I think statistically, Randy Moss is number 3. It's Jerry Rice.
Yeah, it's Jerry Rice.
And then Randy Moss.
No, I think that he's one of the best, rather.
But I do know what you're saying, though. I mean, you're right. Yeah. I mean, Randy, even in his very last year in the NFL, Randy Moss was still able to do that a couple times in 2012 with the 49ers.
That was out of his prime, but he still won a Super Bowl ring with the Patriots.
No, Randy Moss never won one.
Oh no, they lost to the. That's when they lost to
the Giants.
The Giants, yeah, you're right.
And then, in his last year, of course, people forget he did make it to a Super Bowl as well. The lights went out, and then that's the one we don't talk about. But
I forgot he was on the Niners.
Yep, he was on that 2012 team. Michael Crabtree kind of stole the show for that receiving corps that year. But yeah, so what do you think? Chiefs' final record this year?
I think 13-4 is still, but I think I would move some of their losses around. Yeah. So I think they go. I think they start out undefeated. I think they beat Minnesota at Minnesota because that's during that's still warm and Minnesota's a dome and I think Kansas City's a dome too, isn't it?
No, it's not a dome. They're trying to figure out which one you're looking at. They're starting out with Detroit on Thursday night.
Yeah. That I could see them. I could see them possibly losing that game, but then they're beating Jacksonville. They're beating Chicago to death. The New York Jets is a thinker, man. That's one to look at for sure.
I do have them beating the Jets. But yeah, so basically, so I have them finishing 13-4. So yeah, with my losses, I mean, you already addressed. I called out Minnesota. I think that's just going to be one of those ones where like, hey, upsets do happen in the NFL. So I believe Minnesota may have the capability at Minnesota because it's a tough place. U.S. Bank Stadium's a tough place to play.
Yes,
so
it is. Yeah,
that's why I have that there. Versus Philly, I think Philly will get revenge for the Super Bowl
it's
loss.
at Philly. Yeah, I can see that.
No, it's actually at Arrowhead. That'll be a home game for
just
them.
kidding. I could see Green Bay beating them before Vegas does. Honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean Green Bay, I think
Yeah.
definitely could, especially with that game being at Green Bay late in the
Yeah,
season.
they just people think they're not. They're going to be a lot better than what people are letting on.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't count the
So
Packers out this year. I think they're going to be contenders. So I think in general the NFC North will take a step back this year.
Yeah.
Obviously the Vikings were solid last year. They got the 3 seed easily. But I think overall it's going to take a step back. I mean, we can talk about it when we get there, but I do think the Lions could actually win their first ever NFC North title this
100%.
year.
They are definitely in contention. They could drop to Buffalo. Winning at New England, it don't matter how good or bad the Patriots are, is still a hard place to play.
Still very, very difficult.
Yeah. I like the Cincinnati loss. I can see that for sure.
Because so despite the AFC Championship, of course, last year, Cincy has had Kansas City's number. Like Joe Burrow, up until that point last year, had never lost to Patrick Mahomes, and it never mattered if they were playing in Cincinnati. It never mattered if they were playing at Arrowhead. It seemed like the Bengals always came out on top. Now, yeah, that AFC Championship, wow, what a game! I mean, everyone's saying, "Oh, it ended in controversy." Hey, I mean, the Bengals had a chance. They had the ball with under 2 minutes to go. They just couldn't capitalize. They had the punt of the way. Obviously everyone's going to point the finger. Oh, that bullshit penalty. It's like, I mean, by definition, I mean that's the rule right there. I mean that was clearly a late hit out of bounds. I mean, you hate to see a game end that way, but that's the way it ended. But yeah, I mean, I think Cincinnati will bounce back, beat KC in that game. But yeah, the reason I want to address why I had KC losing to the Vegas Raiders. So even though Vegas past couple years, haven't been great. Well, not the past couple years, but this past year, not great. But they still play the Chiefs very well. They seem to match up with them pretty well. It's always close. It always comes down to the wire. The Raiders just tend to luse that mojo in the fourth quarter. But if anyone in this division has the capability of beating the Chiefs, the Raiders have proven over the past, 5 years, it's been them.
That's very true. Okay. Yeah, I think 13, like I said, 13-4. I think the only difference is I would have had them beating Minnesota, losing to the Jets. So they're starting out 3-1.
That one could have gone either way.
I 100% think so. I think they'll beat Philly. They'll lose to Philly. They'll beat Las Vegas, and I can see them dropping to either Green Bay, Buffalo, or at New England. And that's just how the.
Do you have them sweeping the Raiders this year?
I think so. Yeah, I think the problem with the only thing that I don't want to buy stock in the Raiders is that who's going to play quarterback for the Raiders this year.
It might not even be Jimmy G. It might end up being Brian Hoyer.
But Jimmy G failed his physical.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's like I don't. We can go ahead and move to the Raiders if you want.
Yeah, let's move right to the Raiders.
I mean, Brian Hoyer is like a perennial backup quarterback, and that's what he's always been. When I don't see him going head to head, even with Devontae Adams. I don't see them going head to head and beating a fully loaded, full steam ahead Chiefs team that's going to be coming off of a possible Philly loss.
With Brian Hoyer, I mean, it doesn't seem like you're going to get past the Patrick Mahomes, the Justin Herberts, or the Russell Wilsons. I mean, in this division, quarterback play is key. So yeah, I mean, well, I think Jimmy got the surgery in March, right?
Yep.
So I think I looked up, like, he should be available with that specific injury, he should be available by the end of camp. But, there's so much uncertainty right now, and people are thinking, like, hey, the Raiders, they might end up releasing him. But, yeah, I mean, so it was definitely hard to predict the Raiders' record, assuming that, Brian Hoyer could be their quarterback.
Well, I think they definitely got worse, though. I don't think they had a very good draft, drafting. I mean, their O-line is still pretty good.
It's decent. So I think the strength of the Raiders is going to be the receiving corps. So yeah, you have Devontae Adams, but they did pick up DeAndre Carter, who finally had a breakout season with the Chargers last year. Keelan Cole was decent in Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he can definitely add a lot to the table. Losing Darren Waller, that's going to be hard to replace. I mean, they did pick up Austin Hooper, but
they drafted Michael Mayer, which Michael Mayer, I feel like he has a chance to come out swinging.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. But do you think it's even going to come close to like the production that Darren Waller had? That's
not in the beginning. There's no way. Mm-hmm. And then also, you forget about it, but Josh Jacobs was almost the leading rusher this past year.
Yeah. No, I think Josh Jacobs definitely has potential to have another solid year. You do have a little depth behind him too. I mean, Brandon Bolden, a guy who was a rotational guy in New England.
He had 1,600 yards last season.
Yeah.
12 touchdowns.
Talking about Josh Jacobs?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But, yeah, you definitely have the depth behind him. But going back to the receiving corps, you can't forget Hunter Renfrow.
And Jacoby Myers as well.
Yep. So they're pretty loaded there. I mean, and it all depends. Like, who's throwing these guys? Is it going to be Jimmy? Is it going to be Brian Hoyer?
Yeah, if it's Brian Hoyer, man,
yeah,
he'll always be a Brown for me. I'll always see him as a Brown.
I'll always see him, of course, as the Kyle Shanahan's first quarterback in San Francisco, starting that season 0-9.
Who was the guy that played for the Raiders last year?
Jarrett Stidham?
Yeah, where did Stidham go? Did they release him?
So Stidham is now backing up Russell Wilson in Denver.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But
I'm sitting here looking at the depth chart.
Stidham balled out at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's why I thought that there was going to be a quarterback battle between him and Jimmy. But so, I think Jimmy G is still a backup quarterback. I'm sorry. The difference between being on the Las Vegas Raiders and the 49ers with that loaded locker room. I mean,
well, I think you could argue and say that, the weapons that Jimmy would have here with the Raiders, could match that of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, as a 49er fan, I'm going to say, hell no, absolutely not. But, dude, you have some weapons here.
Well, I would take Devontae Adams over Debo.
You would take him over any receiver.
Any receiver, absolutely. I would probably take Josh Jacobs.
Over Christian McCaffrey?
I don't know. Last year, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, he was a stud last year. Just could not be stopped.
Absolutely.
I would take the 49ers O-line. But, this team shines with just their defense, and really they're getting after the passer.
Their edge rushers. Max Crosby and
Chandler Jones, which I did not know. Did you know Chandler Jones's brother is John Jones? Like John Bones Jones, the UFC heavyweight guy?
I did not know that, but it's good to know. Wow. It was Chandler Jones, too, that beat that single-handedly beat the Patriots on that wild play last year.
Yes.
Right? Yep. Yeah, that was crazy. But, yeah, so I think the Raiders are pretty much – my prediction, as you can see, is I think they're going to leave off pretty much right where they left off. Going 6-11 for the second straight year. I think this could be Josh McDaniels' last year with the Raiders.
It definitely should be also. I think 6-11 is almost generous, man. It really depends. I think you should have two different numbers. You should have 6-11 if Jimmy Garoppolo plays, and then shit, dude.
If Hoyer plays, it could be 4-13.
I don't see them like. Do you honestly tell me that you see them playing New England and beating New England with Josh Hoyer?
Brian
Hoyer? No.
No.
There's a lot of teams out here. I don't know if they'll beat them with. They got a hard-ass schedule with Jimmy.
They do. Because who do I have them beat? So I have them beating New England. I think it's because it's a home game. I'm not really buying into New England this year. So that's pretty much, to be completely transparent, I think that's why I have them beating the Patriots. I have them beating Chicago. I do have them, and yeah, you already called me out here. I have them splitting with KC, which I think that's going to be one of the upsets of the year. The Raiders beating the Chiefs at least once.
Which, I mean, like I said, they could. The Raiders, if you go back and look at their games last year, they would have been close to a 1 seed if they had won their 1 touchdown games.
Exactly. Yeah, you think about some of the games they blew, like the Rams game. Do you remember that? They had that one. There was like 3 or 4 crucial penalties on that last drive of the game where Baker was able to, lead the Rams to the comeback victory. That was insane. I got the Raiders splitting basically the whole AFC West. I got them splitting with the Broncos, splitting with the Chargers, and splitting with the Chiefs. I don't have anyone sweeping them this year.
Well, I've got 6-11 with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I got 4-13 with Brian Hoyer. And those 2 extra losses, I don't foresee them beating Kansas City with Brian Hoyer. That would be the upset of the generation, I think.
That's a very good point.
I think they either drop to New England or they drop to Denver at Denver.
Yep.
So
yeah, I had them losing to Denver at Denver, the season opener.
Or Denver at home. Sorry, in the last game of the year, and then getting swept by Denver.
To be fair, though, they've kind of had Denver's number.
Well, see, this is where the Raiders have had their fair share of all of them, but that was I can't think. What was the quarterback's name?
For the Raiders?
Yeah.
Derek Carr?
Derek Carr. That's Derek Carr had those guys' numbers.
That's true.
What I mean? And I will take Derek Carr over Jimmy Garoppolo 500 times a year. That is just befuddles me, honestly. I guess a head coach, how do you release Derek Carr?
I don't know. I got to say they definitely didn't upgrade.
No.
I think in terms of you're getting close to the same caliber player, but I will say Derek Carr, he's a guy that's going to stay healthy. Jimmy's battled the injury bug, obviously, over the years. Jimmy hasn't played a full season since 2019. That was his only full season as a starting quarterback in the NFL, where he started and finished out every single game.
Which, if you're playing Jimmy G and you let him throw nothing but 30-yard passes, he's going to nickel and dime you down the field. But if he goes anything further than that, it's the deep ball is a loss.
Yes, agreed.
So, but yeah, put some respect on Jimmy G's name. He's still in the NFL.
Yep. So the guy is a winner. You can't deny it.
He does have a Super Bowl.
Well, he has 2 Super Bowl rings. He didn't play in those Super Bowls, but
I'm saying he's got 2 rings.
Yeah, but he's got an appearance as a starter. But you're like, how much did that hurt you to say that?
Yeah, that sucks. Anyways, we'll move on from that.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the one last thing about the Raiders. So the Raiders actually do have the longest AFC West drought. They have not won the AFC West since 2002.
Wow.
But now we'll move on to the AFC West team with the longest playoff drought, that being the Denver Broncos. The Broncos haven't made it to the playoffs since 2015 when Peyton Manning won Super Bowl 50. So my question is this the year Denver is going to finally get back? You have the weapons on paper. Skid, on paper, this is one of the best teams in the NFL. On
100%,
paper, without a doubt. You had a top tier defense last year. This defense only got stronger. You have, arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the past decade. You have a hell of a receiving core. You have a really good O-line. I'm going to say that. You have a really good O-line. And then, of course, you have the running backs, too. So all across the board, you have weapons. You have Sean Payton, a head coach who has won a Super Bowl, who's been to the playoffs, who has multiple division titles. Like, this should be the year, right?
I mean, Well, going down the list, obviously Russell Wilson he's not played like it and has not showed it, but he is a great quarterback.
He
Javonte
is.
Williams is a stud.
He's going to be
Samaje
back from injury this
Perine
year. That
is
was a great
also a
pickup.
stud, man. He was really good at Cincinnati. Jerry Jeudy is obviously Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton, really, really good.
Then you got Mike McGlinchey to
McGlinchey,
bolster the
yep.
O-line. Garrett Bowles, Isaiah Prince coming over from the Bengals. That's going to be, I think, a solid unit up front this year. They should have the ability to run the ball very well. But honestly, I want to talk about this defense. So they added Zach Allen this year.
Freaking Zach Allen, Frank Clark.
You have DJ Jones, who's one of the best interior D linemen in the game right now, one of the most underrated interior defensive linemen in the game right now. Skid, I have not seen any interior defensive lineman come off the ball faster than DJ Jones in the past.
His get off is insane. It's like he's in the offensive huddle.
Oh yeah.
I mean, seriously. And then when you look at the secondary, like PS2 and Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons and PS2 alone are two of the best.
Should be one of the best secondaries in the league right now.
100%. I think they had a top 3 defense last year. They were really good defensively.
That just speaks to how bad their offense, or how much their offense underperformed last year.
Offense was awful.
And then I don't want to say anything negative towards Nathaniel Hackett. He's a great coordinator in this league. He
is a fantastic
coordinator. I just don't think it was the right fit. Maybe Sean Payton can revive this offense, and maybe they'll finally reach their full potential. But yeah, you mentioned they have Jerry Jeudy, they have Cortland Sutton. I mean, Tim Patrick is a solid pass catcher too. I mean, gosh, these guys just look stacked across the board. But
who is there? I would like to see who is there. Who did Sean Payton pick up as a coordinator?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't
That's what I was looking for right now.
Who is this guy with the Saints? Was it Carmichael?
Yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, let's see. Are you looking up the Broncos coaching staff right now?
I'm actually still looking up players. So they drafted Marvin Mims, a receiver from Oklahoma. Really, really, really good. I guess they got another receiver too. Could be wrong. Or tight end or something. I don't know, they got somebody.
Yeah, they haven't really had a replacement for Noah Fant yet.
No. The Noah Fant situation, though, is one of those deals. It's kind of like every player the Packers release. They end up going and being better at a different place.
Well, he was a part of the trade. He was a part of the Russell Wilson trade.
And look where he's at now. You know what I mean? But it's like, for example, Taysom Hill. A lot of people don't know he was a Packer.
Yes, I'm well aware.
The safety for the Bills, he got hurt this past year. I forget his name.
Talking about DeMar Hamlin?
No, the guy who. I'll have to look it up now. I can't stand that.
Let's get back to the Broncos here. So, what do you have? What do you have them finishing at?
I think 9-8 is a question mark. You know what I mean? I just think
their schedule's really tough this year. So that's why I had them going 9-8. It is a tough schedule. You can't deny.
What I'm saying by question mark is I think that they could either go beyond that, or they could regress underneath that. The thing is they will have a better season than last year.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't get much worse than that. They finished 5-12.
Yeah. Micah Hyde is his name.
Oh, yep.
Micah Hyde played for the Packers.
I do remember that.
Go. Anyways, that this team has the potential, but they do have a really hard schedule this year. I think they're going to Miami.
Yeah, I got them losing to Miami.
To KC, going.
I have them getting swept by the Chiefs. So Patrick Mahomes has never ever lost to the Broncos. That's how long. I'm pretty I'm actually pretty sure the last time Denver beat Kansas City was in 2015. It could have been 16, but I think it was 15. So basically, the last year Denver made it to the playoffs. Last year Denver won the division. Last year anyone besides Kansas City ever won the division, 2015.
I think the loss to the Packers are going to be a lot better. I think they're going to lose the Packers and they're going to beat Houston. That's the only difference I think I would change.
That was one of my upsets I chose. I chose Houston to upset Denver. But yeah, who else? I got them. I have them splitting with the Raiders. Have them getting swept by the Chiefs. I believe I have them splitting with the Chargers. Yes, I have them splitting with the Chargers, have them beating Cleveland, have them beating Minnesota. I have them losing to the Bills. I do have them beating the Jets.
That's once again that's a toss-up game. But they could come out and smoke Miami and end up being 5-0. You know what I mean? Or they could end up dropping the first opener to Las Vegas. This team is such a question mark. The Raiders are so much easier, but the Broncos, they should be.
On paper, they should start with they should have a very decent start to the season.
I remember whenever all this QB movement was moved around and Devontae going to the AFC West and everything, I remember everyone thought that this right here, this was going to be the premier division in the NFL. And it has been extremely lackluster minus the Chiefs.
Well, I will say, it's somewhat lived up to the hype. You did have two playoff teams last year. The Chargers and Chiefs made it. The year before, you almost had three. Now, remember, the Raiders almost tied with the Chargers. That would have put three AFC West teams in the playoffs that year.
Yeah, that was Devontae's first year, I believe. Whenever the first.
So this past year was because he was still with the Packers in 21.
Yes, he was. Okay.
Now moving on, are we ready to talk Chargers?
Yeah, let's get it.
All right, so the Chargers looking for their first division title since I want to say 2009. Obviously, they've been a wild card team in the playoffs for quite some time. Very, very up and down year last year. They finished 10-7. Obviously, clinched that wild card berth. Blew a 27-7, or was it 27? I think it was 27-7, not 27-0, right?
Yes.
They blew that huge lead against the Jags. A game where in the first quarter, after they had 3 interceptions off of Trevor Lawrence, it looked like it was going to be all them. It looked like they were going to have the opportunity to go to Kansas City, maybe turn some heads in the divisional round, beat the Chiefs, advance to the AFC title game. But no, terrible second half against the Jags. It was really kind of the story of their season last year. They were getting blown out by teams they shouldn't have been blown out against. Having close games against teams that they really should have kind of blown away. It was just a roller coaster season is the best way to describe it. And I think just based off of, on paper, this is another one of those teams. On paper, right? Good-looking team, good-looking squad here. But due to their inconsistencies and how tough their schedule is this year, I actually have the Chargers finishing 8-9.
That's really, really, really harsh.
Yeah,
I think this is the second best team in this division. I think I could see them going 8-9's harsh.
It is. I thought I was for sure too harsh on them, but I don't know. I have them taking a step back this year because honestly,
I can see 11-6 is where I'm kind of thinking.
11. I don't know. That might be a little too generous.
Just based on their schedule. The Chargers defense is really good against the run. That's the only thing they were actually really good at last year. Or was the opposite? Were they getting ran? I can't remember if they were getting ran.
Well, their secondary is on paper, their secondary is really good.
Yeah.
You got Derwin James. You got Asante Jr. You also have J.C. Jackson, who had that phenomenal year in New England in 2021. And then, your front seven, you got Khalil Mack, you got Sebastian Joseph Day, obviously Joey Bosa. The weapons are there. But, yeah, you're right. One of those units kind of had a lackluster season. Bosa missed most of the season.
See, that's what, people were talking about this team. Khalil Mack did not have a very good year last year.
Correct.
He had I mean, he only had 8 sacks last year.
Well, that's still
That's
pretty good.
Yeah, but we're talking about one of the best pass rushers in the
Yes.
last 15 years.
If you were to look at his Chicago numbers, it would be much different. Yep.
But yeah, Joey Bosa only played. He only played 10 games last year. He had more. Well, yeah. Anyways, he only had 10 games played last year. Yeah, J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, Sante Samuel. Then on the offensive side, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen didn't play until like the last bit of the year.
And then Mike Williams got hurt in the season finale.
Yes.
Didn't play in the wild card game against the Jags.
So I think that I think Austin Eckler is a stud.
Yes, one of the best running backs.
One
in
of
the
the
league.
best two-way running backs in the league, 100%. Corey Linsley is a top 5 center in the league.
One of the best, without a doubt.
We couldn't pay him. Once again, Packers players move on and have successful careers. We couldn't pay Corey. He wanted a max, and he got a max deal. I mean, he's one of the highest paid centers.
He got what he deserved. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's really, really good. Gerald Everett is
one of the best tight ends.
One of the best tight ends in the NFL right now. Absolutely.
He's got one of the best tight end coaches in the NFL right now too.
Yes, he does.
Shout out, Coach Koger.
But I think this team could, and ESPN will also think this team could potentially end up winning this division over the Chiefs.
The bold statement, but yeah, I mean, on paper they could.
But the way how spotted they are, I agree with a lot of your losses. I don't agree with the Tennessee loss. I think Tennessee is not going to be good this year. So I think they're going to beat Tennessee. I think they're going to come out hot. I think they're going to come out 5-0. And everyone's going to be like Chargers, Chiefs, and then I could see them. This is really out there, but I could see them taking their first loss after Kansas City. I could see them losing to Kansas City at Kansas City, and then letting that loss boil into
Chicago,
a loss versus Chicago at home.
Dude, crazy things happen, man. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
We see some crazy upsets in the league every single year.
I think the Green Bay, mid-season, it's a toss-up. It gets cold up there fast, and like I said, people are sleeping on Green Bay. They're not going to be a Super Bowl contender, but they're going to be. They're not going to take a step.
They're going to be a contender in the North.
I think so, 100%. How could they not? Baltimore lost 100%.
Yeah, I got them getting
the Buffalo. Yeah.
I have Kansas City sweeping them, but then I think I have them. Yeah, I have them splitting with the Raiders and the Broncos. No chance they're getting by Dallas this year. I do actually. This is a tough one for me. I had them beating Detroit.
That's at home.
It's at home for them. And for some reason I think I had everyone in this division, with the exception of the Raiders, actually beating the Jets this year.
Well, I don't think the Lions are going to be as good as everyone thinks they're going to be this year.
Yes, and I'm kind of feeling the same way about the Jets.
Yeah, I think the Jets have a more on paper roster than the Lions do. You know what I mean? I just don't think Jared Goff is your premier quarterback. I'll say it 1,000 times. Whenever you're playing the Lions, I will have Jared Goff throw for 450 before I let one of the running backs run all over me.
That's a good point.
Because I just don't think he's there.
Hey, remember though, Jared Goff took his team to the Super Bowl in 2018.
Oh, did they win?
No.
Yeah.
They only put up 3 points in that game.
That was a sad Super Bowl. Who'd they play? I'm blowing drawing
Patriots.
Yeah, that sucks.
That was the one. The final score was 13-3. I want to say Julian Edelman was actually the Super Bowl MVP, which was surprising. I thought it should have been.
That was a sucky Super Bowl as a whole because both defenses were so good.
Yeah.
Because that was like Aaron Donald prime. That was prime Aaron Donald.
They also had Ndamukong Suh, right, on that same D line.
Ndamukong Suh, and they also had I had a D and edge rusher. I don't remember his name.
Leonard Floyd.
Yeah, Leonard Floyd.
Yep.
They also had we played against him my freshman year against University of Florida, Dante Fowler.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
that team was ridiculous, and they shit the bed in the Super Bowl.
Didn't they? No, that was it 2018 or 2019 when they picked up Clay Matthews?
I think it was 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe I was expecting him to have a breakout year at the Rams because that's the way it goes.
That's where he ended up finishing out.
Yeah.
The Rams.
And the Packers won't sign him. He's still looking to get signed so he can retire as a Packer.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so you got the Chargers going 11-6. So I think that's really the only team where we differ in opinions.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think this is going to be a very competitive division overall this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're easily going to see two teams make it. I think the Chiefs, they're not taking a step back. I mean, the Chiefs are
full steam ahead right now.
They're going to be the best team in the AFC this year. Like I said, I mean, I think we're seeing the second coming of the Patriots dynasty in the AFC. I think
they are. I think the AFC is in a better place than the NFC is right now, anyways.
Exactly. Well, you have it's more competitive. You have more contenders in the AFC.
Well, there's so many rebuilds in the NFC, and it's just where all those NFC teams were good for so long.
Yep.
That now a lot of people have to rebuild. I think the Niners are almost in a rebuild. I think
not quite. I think it'll be a couple of years because we're getting up like in terms of cap space. There's not much left. There's a lot of things to be determined in the next few seasons for sure for San Francisco. Their window is definitely getting smaller and smaller. So it's kind of like one of those things like, hey, you got to act now or you're going to lose it for another decade.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
But all right, any last words on the AFC West?
I think regardless, what I love about these teams is I've always loved about the AFC West is they've always had an exciting player.
Yeah.
If you go down like the line of them, the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes,
Peyton Manning.
Who else? The running back, Holmes,
Priest
Holmes,
Larry Johnson.
They had the receiver for the Chiefs, the really fast guy, little bitty dude. I forget his name. Not Tyreek, but Tyreek. Way back in anyways. The Chargers have had LT,
Drew Brees,
Antonio Gates, Phil Rivers,
Dan
Fouts. The Raiders have had
Rich Gannon in his prime years.
Rich Gannon, Bo Jackson.
Yep. They had Jerry Rice, Tim Brown,
Charlie
Garner,
Prime Khalil Mack.
Yep. Phil Romanowski, one of the fiercest line. Actually, Phil Romanowski played for Denver too.
Ted Hendricks.
Oh yeah.
The human glitch.
Matt Millen. Lyle Alzado played for both Denver and
I actually think that the least exciting team is the Chiefs, history-wise.
No.
Now the Chiefs are a perennial team. Like they've been in the league I'm talking about players-wise, like looking at exciting players.
Well, I mean, you had Joe Montana, Marcus Allen, Lake Dawson, Tony Gonzalez, Derek Thomas, who I mentioned, Neil Smith, Trent Green.
Oh, I forgot about Derek Thomas. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And Tony G.
Oh, Dwayne Bowe, was that the receiver you were thinking of?
No, I'll have to look him up. I'm pretty sure he's in the Hall of Fame.
They also had, I think at the start of his career, didn't they have Peerless Price? And then they also had Joe Horn, the Chiefs did at one point.
Well, Will Lanier, Bobby Bell, Will Shields. I still don't see this receiver.
Willie Rofe was a Chief too, right?
Yes. Maybe he's not in the Hall of Fame. He was just
Willie
fast.
Rope is in the Hall of Fame. I can tell you that much.
No, Willie Rope. I'm looking at it right now. I'm talking about the receiver.
Receivers.
Lynn Dawson.
Yep.
Buck Buchanan.
They got Todd Blackledge out of that stacked '83 draft class. But yeah, no, very exciting. You're right, very exciting division over the course of NFL history. All four of these teams were a part of the original AFL.
Oh, dude, the Nigerian Nightmare.
Christian Okoye,
man. Come on. Give some fullbacks some respect.
Well, I wouldn't really consider him a fullback, but yeah, you're right. He was a sprinter as well.
Yeah, yes.
Christian
Okoye. The Nigerian Nightmare, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, a lot of history in this division, a lot more history than the AFC South. I mean, give some props to the AFC South. I mean, they have expansion teams. So
yeah. Well, I think the AFC West, there's a precedent when one of these four teams come into your town. Doesn't matter what their record is.
Yep.
Like, because of history. Chiefs obviously are as old as the Packers. Not as old, but I mean older.
But yeah, basically the heyday, like the days of the AFL. Yeah. Like I said, these were like some of the original AFL teams were in this entire division. Now, don't be fooled. The Seattle Seahawks, who came about in 1976, were also a member of the AFC West until the most recent realignment back in 2002.
I did not know that. Full of it, man. But I think that with these four teams, anytime you come to town, they will beat your ass if you don't come out and play.
Absolutely.
Even as bad as the Broncos played last year, if you came out and played just as bad, they were going to beat you.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it happened to the Niners. They ended up dropping a game in the Broncos.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yep. But anyways, Skid, thanks for coming on as always. I think next time I have you on here, we'll talk about the AFC North next.
Sounds like a plan.
That should be a pretty interesting division this year.
It's like the best conference in football.
Oh, yeah. But hey, Tabor Football Podcast, signing off.